Hey everybody, I am back with another super cool video, and I am adding to my composite series today, and we are focusing on Venus square to Pluto in the composite chart and what that means when we have this going on between two people. So this video applies to composite charts and also to the Davison relationship chart. So a composite chart is really the midpoint between planets or places, and it really shows how it's really the birth chart of a relationship. It shows the completeness of a relating between two people. So where the synastry shows how two people feel about each other and how they relate on a day-to-day basis, the composite is more the body of the relationship. It really shows how both people feel about it and what goes on in the bigger picture. So Venus in a composite chart, is really showing where the love is, where the tenderness is, where the affection is, where the aesthetic and artistic appreciation is between two people. And Pluto is really the power. It really represents the unconscious forces between two people, and very much, eighth house matters. Can represent money, can represent sex, can represent a crisis between two people. So when we have Venus square to Pluto in a couple's composite chart, this is another aspect where we see some power struggles coming in. This could be considered a platonic relationship if other key contacts are there. The square between Venus and Pluto, we can actually see this show up in some composite charts that are actually pretty healthy. The people are actually doing pretty well together. A Venus square to Pluto is not necessarily a killer. It's not generally as severe as a Venus opposite to Pluto. And it's not like the Venus conjunct Pluto, where that's more harmonious. The square from Venus to Pluto is not easy to live with, but you really have to consider the two people's charts. If one or both people are not particularly Plutonic on their own, or handle their own Pluto well, or it is a light Pluto that they're dealing with, this square can be dealt with. It can add into a couple's relationship an ongoing sexual fascination and an intensity. Typically, we see this square show up in relationships where they are a bit more sick. There is some issues that are unhealthy in the relationship because it's really pointing to a fundamental lack of compatibility in two people's love natures and what they're looking for. So there is a strong sexual component to this relationship. These two people are very attracted to each other. Now, we tend to see in most relationships that have this composite aspect, the square, we tend to see more arguing and fighting. And it can be ongoing disagreement, not like the opposition where we're doing great and then we're not. We're making up, we're breaking up. There tends to be a more, I want to say, common thread with the square that is really about not feeling settled, not feeling like we're in a place where we are mutually satisfied. So this chronic feeling of dissatisfaction with the love, with what's going on with the things of Venus between these two people. So there's a lot of make-up sex when we have this square, they tend to be very passionate about each other, and they are very attracted. And as we, explore this relationship, as people have this one go on over time, they actually do remain attracted to each other for the long term. We tend to see that with Venus in aspect to Pluto and composite charts. They really, the physical attraction lasts because we have this ongoing psychological intensity that's really driving it. So they typically will settle into a role where one is the controller and one is playing the victim role. Now we can see both people doing both at different times. It's very common with the square. But typically, you have to look at the synastry. If somebody has a lot of Pluto on somebody else's personal planets, then this is going to play out as more of a victim aggressor. If we have a pretty even relating between the power in the synastry charts and the charts overlay, then we can see this as a more even back and forth, where we have this these manipulative tactics that these two people use go back and forth, and it's to keep each other in their lives and to keep contact with each other. The reason behind the manipulation, they're actually very drawn to each other, but at the same time they are incompatible. So there can be a fascination that starts with the victim person. They can very much give too much credit to the person that is playing out the controlling Pluto role. They can see them as kind of almost a Svengali. They can be very, just very inappropriately fascinated with somebody that, to anybody else, has some real issues. So it's really interesting when people are in this relationship, how they can actually fall under a spell very easily of the Pluto person. Now, if this is going back and forth, there is a mutual fascination between the two. So when the person that is playing out the victim role becomes strong, because they do, this square really prompts both people, if it is going back and forth with an even amount of control and manipulation, or if it is, one who's holding the power and one who's giving the power, when we see it, when one is holding the power and one is giving the power, when the victim person really starts to fight back, when they start to own their own power, when they start to take some of that power from the Pluto person becomes extremely angry. They will seethe in this silent, it's just this seething, angry silence that they expect the victim person to respond to. Now, this is a form of manipulation, because typically the person that has been holding the power just has to hurt the Venus person and then they get what they want. Well, when the Venus person is not susceptible to that kind of hurt anymore, the Pluto person has to start using silent control because the other form isn't working. So the silent control, the silent anger is meant to impart a feeling of guilt onto the Venus person, or the person who's playing out the victim role. So depending on how much work and how much struggle the Venus person or the person who's playing out the victim role has undergone, they can actually find themselves able to exist in this relationship if they are willing to be strong enough, if they are constantly willing to establish their boundaries, if they are constantly willing to not give in to the Pluto person's manipulation, we can actually see these two people able to stay together. Now, they typically lead separate lives when they are together, if they do stay together. They have very different interests, and they tend to spend quite a bit of time apart. There is usually a theme of traveling or living apart when we have this going on. A lot of times we see the Venus person doing a great deal of traveling to get out of the pressure cooker that is Venus square Pluto in the home. So it very much boils down to a love-hate relationship. These two people don't necessarily not want to be together, but they really can't be together in a successful way. So I can't live with you and I can't live without you is what it really boils down to. And there is a strong tendency in this type of square, with this type of square, for finding pleasure at the other's expense. So it can become a very kind of a selfish relationship where the two people are trying to get their own, they're trying to get what they deserve, they're trying to get what's owed them from the other person. Because they feel that there is, there's been a sense of, denial, and they want to get what's theirs. So, we can see this undercurrent of control really coming up when it comes to resources, when it comes to children as well. We can oftentimes find that the Pluto person is raising the children in such a way, or using the resources in such a way, that it is meant to get back at or drive the victim person or the Venus person crazy. And if this is an even and more evenly manipulative partner, if the control is more relationship, if the control is more balanced out, if we're both experiencing these things evenly, then we can see them doing this to each other. So it is really about giving up selfishness when we have this square, and about doing for the other partner in a way that we are not giving to get. So it is one that can be dealt with in a long-term relationship, but it definitely presents its challenges. And there will always be a feeling of separation or conflict when it comes to the two love natures and what they're really looking for. So, hope you enjoyed this. Please subscribe to my channel if you have not. I will be back super soon with more awesome videos. You can find me on the internet at Truth and Aspect Astrology. You can find me on Facebook at Truth and Aspect Astrology. And yes, I do private consultation. Email for appointment. We will make it happen. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.